Hello ladies and gentlemen, and movie lovers of all kind, and welcome back to the channel. As always, I am your host, Brett Murphy, and for today's video I have a brand new cinema showdown versus video for you all, and it is going to be Knives Out versus Glass Onion. So Glass Onion, a Knives Out mystery, is the sequel to Knives Out, and after a limited theatrical run, it has finally recently landed on Netflix for the world to see and enjoy. As of right now, it has received very similar ratings from both audiences and critics alike to its predecessor, Knives Out, and has done some massive numbers for Netflix. So the question now is it better than its predecessor? Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're about to find out. Before I hop into the actual video itself, I just wanted to let you all know that I have an entire playlist dedicated to all of my versus videos. There is well over 50 videos already on that playlist, with plenty more on the way. So if versus videos are your thing, then be sure to check out that playlist, and I guarantee you'll find something you like. And so without further ado, let's hop right into things. Round 1. Plot. As always, in this round, we are just talking about the base plot in its simplest form, not talking about the pacing of the movie, how the story plays out, anything like that whatsoever. We are just talking about the generic base plot. And the plot for Knives Out goes, when renowned crime novelist Harlan Thrombey, played by Christopher Plummer, is found dead at his estate just after his 85th birthday, the inquisitive and debonair detective Benoit Blanc, played by Daniel Craig, is mysteriously enlisted to investigate. And the plot for Glass Onion loosely goes like, 5 longtime friends are invited to the Greek island home of billionaire Miles Braun. The main event is a murder mystery weekend game with Braun to be the victim. Also invited, of course, is famed detective Benoit Blanc. So the base plot for Knives Out is fairly basic. I mean, we've seen movies like that, these whodunit murder mystery movies, a million times over. And although the plot for Glass Onion is fairly basic as well, it at least tries to add a little bit of flair by being set on a mysterious Greek island with a billionaire hosting a murder mystery party that turns into an actual murder mystery. It's pretty close, as neither one of these plots are very special, but I'm going to be giving this first round to Glass Onion. Round 2. Storytelling. So now this is the round where I will be discussing the pacing of the movie, the way the story plays out, its surprises, and all that kind of fun stuff. So of course, both of these movies being murder mystery whodunits, there's not really a ton to differentiate here. But what I did notice after initially taking in Glass Onion is that I did kind of feel that added 10 minutes of runtime over Knives Out. Not to mention, despite how exotic the location is, it did feel a little more limited being set in just one location. There were elements that I liked about that because I liked the feeling of our characters being trapped, but I also felt it was a little too similar and gave very, very identical vibes to movies like Murder on the Orient Express or Death on the Nile. So it didn't really offer anything new or unique in that department either. The last difference I really noticed between Glass Onion and Knives Out is that I found that Glass Onion was a lot more exposition heavy than Knives Out was. I found the mystery unraveled in a far more natural and intriguing way in Knives Out, and although I very, very much enjoyed Glass Onion, I did find that it was a little bit too exposition heavy at times and didn't leave the audience enough to solve for themselves. So although it is still admittedly very close, at least closer than I made it sound throughout that round, where I was pretty much just saying the things that Glass Onion did differently, I just found that Knives Out had slightly better pacing, a little less exposition, and thus a few more surprises and a bit more for the audience to engage with. So I'm going to be giving this second round to Knives Out. Round 3. Lead characters. So this one is a bit tough because it's kind of hard to distinguish, aside from Benoit Blanc, who are the lead characters and who are the supporting characters. So for Knives Out, I decided to go with Daniel Craig's Benoit Blanc and Ana de Armas's Marta. And for Glass Onion, I decided to once again go with Daniel Craig's Benoit Blanc, and this time, the other lead character I've decided to focus on is Janelle Monáe's Andy. Look, this is arguably my favorite role that Daniel Craig has ever taken on. Yes, I love his James Bond. He is also my favorite James Bond, but you can just tell how much happier he is in this role and how much he enjoys playing this detective, using this over-the-top zany accent, cracking jokes, being clever, and solving these big grand mysteries. So it sort of comes down to these side lead characters being Ana de Armas's Marta and Janelle Monáe's Andy. I really loved Ana de Armas in Knives Out, I'm not gonna lie. I've always really liked her as an actress, with her breakout role in my opinion being Blade Runner 2049, and now she's turned into a really big star. In Knives Out, she plays a much more timid and reserved character, but I think she nailed it. She's very shy, very quiet, but she's honest and hardworking, and I loved that. And although I won't get into the movie's ending just yet, I found that her character arc overall and the way the story plays out for her to be extremely satisfying. Janelle Monáe is also no slacker whatsoever. This woman is a phenomenal actress, and that is on full display in this movie. However, I found she didn't really get to spread her wings and show what she's got until a little bit later in the movie. In the beginning, Andy is very held back. She keeps quiet, is a woman of very few words, and we sort of unravel why as the movie goes on. Once again, I won't get into that too much right now, but she doesn't say a lot, and when she does, it's just quick, angry, snappy, frustrated responses until probably like the halfway point of the movie. It is the second half of the movie where I very much so fell in love with her character. It's a close one because, like I said, Craig's Benoit Blanc is just superb in both movies, and you really can't differentiate between his performances because he's just so good, equally as good in both. So it comes down to Ana de Armas versus Janelle Monáe. And though by the end I loved them pretty much equally, I'm gonna have to say that I really did love Ana de Armas's character from start to finish, whereas it took me a little while to warm up to Monáe's. So I'm going to have to give this third round to Knives Out. Round 4. Supporting characters. And now we get to the rest of these very massive, talented, stacked casts. For Knives Out, I'm not going to be going over every single character's name because I just don't feel like it. But regardless, we have Jamie Lee Curtis, Chris Evans, Michael Shannon, Toni Collette, Christopher Plummer, Don Johnson, Lakeith Stanfield, Catherine Langford, and Jaden Martell. Yeah, I wasn't kidding. When I said stacked cast, I mean stacked cast. With easily some of the best actors and actresses working today. What I love is that each of them have their own unique, distinctive personalities that make them stand out from the rest, and they all get a little bit of time to shine, whether it's kind of these wackier moments, whether it's these angrier or more emotional moments. They are just a group of arrogant, smug, ignorant, rich assholes, but they do just enough, each of them in their own little ways, to sort of be able to distinguish one from the other. It's not just one kind of base character spread around different actors. No, each of these people have their own motives, their own backstories, their own personalities, their own way of approaching this grander mystery and Benoit Blanc when they're being questioned, and I really did love each and every one of them. For Glass Onion, we had Dave Bautista, Edward Norton, Kate Hudson, Catherine Hahn, Leslie Odom Jr., Jessica Henwick, and Madeline Klein. And though I did very much so love this cast as well, I'm saying love a lot because I really do love both of these movies, but nevertheless, I thought this cast in many ways was just as good, even if it is a bit smaller and has a little less star power in my opinion. The performances were all magnificent. Once again, for the most part, they all have their own distinct, unique personalities that make them stand out from the greater crowd. But I don't find that's necessarily the case for all of them. I feel like some of them kind of fell to the wayside and didn't get much spotlight in this one. The ones who definitely did get a lot of spotlight was Edward Norton, who I actually considered making a lead character for this video, but decided to leave him in a more supporting role. But nevertheless, it's Edward freaking Norton, one of the best actors of all time. I thought that Dave Bautista had his very own different personality and portrayal of this character, which I really enjoyed. Kate Hudson also was definitely her own character in here, and I thought she was hilarious. Madeline Klein did a pretty good job at standing out from the crowd. It's the other three that I felt were kind of pushed to the wayside. Catherine Hahn has a few more moments than the other two to shine, but I very much so felt like Leslie Odom Jr. and Jessica Henwick both very much so kind of just got brushed off and did not get very much time to shine or flex their acting abilities. Truth be told, their characters just kind of bored me and I wanted a lot more from them. So I'm gonna have to give this round to Knives Out. Round 5. Style, Aesthetic, Direction. I'm going to start off by saying that I think Rian Johnson absolutely hit the mark with both of these movies. I don't think this man can miss. Every movie that he's put out, I have loved. Nevertheless, he wrote and directed both of these movies, and I don't think he could have done any better. He knocked both of them out of the park and then some. The direction is slick, snappy, clever with lots of neat camera tricks, and both of these movies do more than enough to feel very distinct and sort of stand out from the greater whodunit kind of subgenre. Knives Out has a much more sort of fall-autumn kind of style and aesthetic, where we have lots of coats, lots of comfy sweaters. Of course, we have Chris Evans's iconic comfy sweater that people just absolutely fell in love with, and overall you sort of have those fall colors and those fall vibes. Glass Onion, in my opinion, however, has a much more summer vibe as it takes place on a tropical Greek island, which to me personally led to Glass Onion having the far more flashier costume and set design, as well as a far more interesting and intricate setting. So in my opinion, the direction is on par. Knives Out and Glass Onion, Rian Johnson just knows what he's doing and did it well with both of these movies. It comes down to that style and aesthetic, and although I am a fall/autumn guy, it is my favorite time of year, I just found that Knives didn't offer up necessarily enough, whereas Glass Onion very much so has its own unique costume design, wonderful set design, and just a much more sort of detailed, layered, and intricate setting. And so round 5 is going to go to Glass Onion. Round 6, Cinematography, Visuals, Editing. Once again, both of these movies written and directed by Rian Johnson, with much of the same crew that worked on the first movie returning for this second movie. And for the most part, these movies are completely neck and neck across all 3 of these categories. When it comes to the visuals, there's not really much to dissect here because there isn't really a ton when it comes to the visuals department. So it comes down to the editing and the cinematography between these 2 movies. And when it comes down to those 2, I just felt that Glass Onion had a bit more camera trickery, a few more wider shots, a few more camera flips, and just these sort of cool moves that helped to keep it a little more fresh and exciting. And the editing itself felt a bit snappier and a bit more stylized than it did in Knives Out. Although, again, when it comes back to the pacing, I don't think that the editing team did the best job with the pacing in Glass Onion, but in terms of sort of wowing the audience and keeping us engaged at all times, I did find that Glass Onion had a few more tricks up its sleeve than Knives Out did. And so I'm giving this round to Glass Onion. Are you looking for the perfect gift for the movie lover in your life, or maybe you just want to treat yourself? Then look no further than the most unique piece of movie art you could possibly have with Movie Palette. Visit moviepalette.com right now and use code BAM15 at the checkout for 15% off your order. And now, back to the video. Round 7, Music and Sound. Both of these movies were composed by Nathan Johnson, and the scores are basically dead even. I loved both of them. They elevate the more tensiony moments, they are whimsical and charming for the more comedic moments, and they really help to build this movie's tension and engage us more with its mystery. They do feel very similar in some ways, but have these little details and intricate inner workings that help us to distinguish which score belongs to which movie. However, what I did find is that Glass Onion had way more catchier and memorable tunes to its soundtrack. You know, that third-party music that they license and bring into these movies. There are way more popular, iconic tracks in Glass Onion that I was bobbing my head to and stamping my foot to than that of Knives Out. As for the rest of the sounds, I also felt that Glass Onion did a bit better of a job. You know, one sticking out in my mind is the Mona Lisa with that closing glass sort of plate for protection, and I found it played with sound a lot more because of that. You know, if something got smashed, if something dropped, the gunshots that happened in the movie, little things like that, all of those little details really help to add and elevate the sound of Glass Onion. And so I will also be giving this round to Glass Onion. Round 8, Resolution. Okay, so just a major spoiler warning here. This round in particular, I am going to be talking in very excruciating, particular specific detail, not actually, I'm just going to kind of gloss over it a little bit, but there will be spoilers here as I will be talking about the resolution of these mysteries, therefore the conclusions of these movies. So I'm actually going to start off with Glass Onion because it's a bit easier to talk about that one first, but as we find out around the midway point or so of the movie, Janelle Monáe's original character, Andy, was actually murdered, and that kind of becomes the main mystery of the movie, and we find out that this new version of Andy that's on the island with Benoit Blanc and everyone else was actually Benoit Blanc's idea, because it is actually Andy's twin sister who comes to Benoit Blanc for his help, and then that is why they go to the island to try and figure this whole thing out. Of course, as we dive deeper into the movie, Dave Bautista's character gets murdered, and Edward Norton's character tries to play the victim in all of this, but we eventually find out that he's the killer, and, you know, he stole the envelope that had the napkin in it and things like that, which is just more detail than I want to get into in this round, but what it really comes down to in the end is that Janelle Monáe's character decides to smash everything made of this nuclear substance and essentially blow up this Greek island mansion, and her standing up for herself and standing up against Miles is what eventually leads to the other characters turning on him and are willing to now throw him under the bus rather than them originally throwing Andy under the bus and essentially saying that, you know, he killed Andy, he stole the idea, he's a piece of garbage, kind of basically just making this selfless act and not worrying about themselves anymore and instead doing what's right, which was a very good ending, but I felt that it was missing a certain something. It lacked a little bit of oomph, a little bit of punch, and just didn't satisfy me quite as much as I was hoping. Yeah, I'm gonna just come out and say it. I thought that Knives Out had one of the best endings of the last few years. Just that final shot of Ana de Armas in her robe with her coffee cup standing on the balcony while the rich assholes with the smug, ignorant, arrogant looks on their faces when looking up at her, knowing that she won and she gets the fortune and they don't get anything and they've been left out. I love it. I love imagining what's going through their minds. I love seeing that look on their faces after everything that they said about her and that they put her through once the mystery is solved. It is just so satisfying to see them all get their comeuppance, to see that Ana de Armas wins and she is not turning into them, she's staying true to herself. All of that, the way the mystery unravels, the way we find out who actually killed Christopher Plummer's character, all of that to me was just done so well. It was miraculously paced. I love the way the story unraveled. It gave the audience just enough to sort of figure things out and piece things together for ourselves, and then we ended with an unbelievably satisfying conclusion, if you ask me. And therefore, I'm giving this 8th round to Knives Out. Final round, Memorability. So I'm going to keep this one short and sweet because there probably is a fair bit of debate as to which one of these is more memorable. I've seen some people say that Knives Out is better, I've seen a lot of people say that they're just about equal, which is sort of the way I feel, and I've seen lots of people actually say that they think Glass Onion is actually the superior movie. And it is really hard to determine because they're not necessarily on level playing fields. Glass Onion only had a very limited theatrical release, and then it dropped straight on Netflix, whereas Knives Out got a full theatrical release. So although yes, the way that Glass Onion released may have gotten more eyes on it, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to have the same impact watching at home versus in a theater. It also means that spoilers are out there way quicker, and some people are just a little bit quicker to dismiss Netflix movies. Not to mention, as of the recording of this video, Glass Onion is like less than a week old, I think, as of right now. Yeah, it's less than a week old. It'll be another day or two until it's a week old, so it's hard to determine whether Glass Onion will be more memorable than Knives Out, so I'm kind of just making some inferences here and predicting the future a little bit. For me, personally at least, Knives Out has very much so stuck in my mind since its release back in 2019. And if I had to choose right now, I think I'd be much quicker to go and rewatch Knives Out over Glass Onion. Though I think that Glass Onion is almost as good as Knives Out, I found that some of its pacing issues, as well as a little less star power, and its, you know, slightly less satisfying ending are sort of to its detriment, because Knives Out just hits all of those marks and is so damn good. There are a lot of things between both of these movies that make them just as good as the other, but I believe that as of right now, Knives Out sort of changed the game for these murder mystery whodunit movies, and is regarded by many as as one of the best whodunits ever. And so for me personally, because you might feel differently if you liked Glass Onion more, I'm going to be giving this final round and the crown to Knives Out. So that is all for today's video, folks. Be sure to let me know down in the comments if you agree or disagree with my winner. While you're at it, don't forget to let me know how you would have scored each of these rounds and who your ultimate winner would have been. If you're a movie lover whatsoever, then my channel is the place to be for you. Be it versus videos like this one, ranking videos, tier videos, top 10s, I have it all and so much more, with well over 600 videos already on the channel and many more on the way. So if you enjoyed this particular video, then be sure to hit that thumbs up button. And if any of that sounds like it's right for you and you want to see more from me, then smash that subscribe button right now. While you're at it, don't forget to ring that little bell icon, that way you can be notified about all of my latest uploads. And as always, stay safe, thank you so much for watching, and that's a wrap. Hey you, yeah you, if you made it this far, just know I appreciate you, and while you're here, consider hitting that subscribe button.